Darren strolled into Boutique Avenue with an air of calm confidence. Dressed casually in faded jeans and a simple hoodie, he moved through the racks, admiring his own creations hanging neatly in a store he'd spent years building from the ground up. As he reached for a leather jacket, Tony, the head of security, approached with narrowed eyes, watching Darren like a hawk. "Can I help you, sir?" Tony's voice was cold, suspicious. Darren kept his tone measured. "Just browsing," he replied, a slight smile playing on his lips. Tony's stare hardened, his gaze flicking over Darren's clothing. "Are you sure you belong here?" Tony asked, loud enough for nearby customers to hear. Darren felt the sting of embarrassment but kept his expression neutral. "Actually, I do," he replied calmly, knowing he'd come here today for precisely this moment. This time, he wasn't walking away quietly. Darren hadn't always been in fashion. Years ago, he'd founded a technology company from a cramped basement apartment, working tirelessly to bring his ideas to life. He was smart, resourceful, and driven, pouring every ounce of energy into his business. Over time, his hard work paid off and the company grew rapidly. But Darren stayed out of the limelight, letting his team take credit while he remained behind the scenes. He preferred it that way. He didn't need the fame, only the satisfaction of seeing his ideas succeed. People knew his name in business circles, but no one would recognize his face on the street. As Darren watched Tony's disdainful gaze, his mind drifted back to his childhood. Growing up in a poor neighborhood, Darren's wardrobe consisted of just 2 worn-out shirts and a single pair of jeans. His mother did her best, mending holes and stretching meals, but the sting of poverty remained. Darren's heart had always yearned for something more, for clothes that fit properly, for shoes that didn't pinch, and for a life where he could walk confidently down any street without feeling out of place. Fashion had once been a distant dream, but he'd never forgotten it. With his technology company thriving, Darren finally had the means to pursue his childhood passion. He envisioned creating a luxury brand, one that offered beautiful, high-quality clothing, but didn't exclude people based on price. Boutique Avenue was meant to fulfill this dream. A store that looked expensive but welcomed everyone, a brand where everyone could feel like they belonged. Darren threw himself into the project, hiring designers, curating collections, and setting up shop in the heart of the city. Yet he kept his involvement a secret, wanting to let the brand stand on its own merits. Boutique Avenue's opening was a success, with press coverage, influencers, and customers all raving about the quality and aesthetic of the store. It quickly became known as a place for luxury that didn't require millions. Darren visited often, slipping in to observe from afar, watching the customers gauging their satisfaction. But something bothered him. A subtle undercurrent of exclusivity had crept in, fostered by certain employees who believed the brand should cater only to the elite. Determined to correct this, Darren emphasized his vision to the managers. Boutique Avenue was for everyone. It didn't matter what customers looked like, where they came from, or what they wore. Everyone should feel welcome. He began conducting secret visits, dressing down and observing, noting which employees were warm and who appeared to judge. As Darren watched, he realized there was a bigger culture issue, one that he needed to address soon. Tony, the head security guard, was firm in his beliefs about the type of people who belonged at Boutique Avenue. He watched customers with a keen eye, paying extra attention to anyone who didn't look wealthy enough. Tony was strict, his body language cold and dismissive towards certain patrons. He prided himself on keeping the store safe, but often ignored Darren's instruction to treat everyone with respect. Darren saw Tony's prejudice, but decided to observe a little longer before taking action. Some of the employees shared Tony's biases, dismissing customers based on appearances and whispering behind their backs. Others tried to stay neutral, treating all patrons equally and avoiding confrontations. Darren noticed certain sales associates who went above and beyond, treating every customer warmly, and he appreciated their dedication. However, Tony's influence was strong, and Darren worried it might change the store's culture if left unchecked. One Saturday, Darren decided to put his store to the test. He wore his most casual clothes, faded jeans, sneakers, and an old hoodie, intending to see how staff would react if he looked like a regular customer. His heart pounded as he entered, knowing his presence would likely attract Tony's attention. He started browsing the jackets, glancing up to see Tony watching him closely, as if he were a threat. Tony's suspicion grew with every step Darren took. His eyes followed Darren's every movement, ready to intervene at the slightest wrong gesture. Darren felt the scrutiny, his anger simmering as he recalled his past, when he'd been treated like this just for looking out of place. He wanted to speak out but knew it wasn't time yet. Instead, he kept shopping, waiting to see how far Tony would go. As Darren moved to the accessories section, he overheard two employees talking quietly about him. They exchanged snide comments, judging him for not looking like the typical Boutique Avenue customer. One employee laughed, suggesting he'd wandered in by mistake. Darren clenched his fists, feeling the sting of their words, the pain of his past resurfacing. But he kept his cool, knowing his patience would soon pay off. Tony finally confronted Darren, accusing him of behaving suspiciously and asking him to empty his pockets. Darren complied, pulling out his wallet and phone, keeping his expression neutral. The other customers watched, some with sympathy, others with curiosity. Darren felt the humiliation creeping in, but he stayed silent, waiting for the perfect moment to reveal the truth. Tony's accusations grew louder, and the humiliation stung deeper. Darren could see the disbelief in some customers' eyes, wondering how a man in such simple clothes could dare shop at Boutique Avenue. But he stayed calm, his patience unwavering, knowing the truth would soon be revealed. Tony's voice was full of disdain as he questioned Darren, making veiled insults about his appearance and financial status. Darren let him speak, absorbing each word, preparing to make his point clear in the most impactful way possible. Darren maintained his composure, asking Tony calmly why he was being treated this way. Tony's smirk spoke volumes, his answer dripping with condescension as he claimed, "Not everyone belongs here." Darren felt the injustice deeply, but he knew his restraint would pay off. Darren warned Tony that his actions would have consequences, but Tony only laughed, assuming Darren was bluffing. The scene attracted a crowd, and Darren knew it was time to call in reinforcements. The store manager arrived, shocked to see the commotion. She tried to calm things down, sensing something unusual about Darren's presence. She seemed to have an inkling of his importance but wasn't fully certain. Darren made a quick call to the head office, requesting a senior executive's presence. The atmosphere shifted as everyone around him realized this man in simple clothes might be someone significant. When the senior executive arrived and addressed Darren as Mr. Mitchell, gasps rippled through the store. Tony and the others realized they'd misjudged him terribly. Darren addressed the staff and onlookers, expressing his disappointment in the prejudice he'd witnessed. He explained his vision for Boutique Avenue, a place for everyone regardless of appearance. Tony stood silently, shame spreading over his face. Tony and the manager apologized, but Darren remained firm. Actions, not words, would show true remorse, and he laid out plans to make the store more inclusive. The customers expressed their support for Darren, and he realized the power of his position. Boutique Avenue would be a store of respect and warmth, and this incident became a pivotal moment. Darren began hiring new staff, focusing on people who shared his values. Inclusivity training was now a priority, setting the tone for the store's future. Tony was dismissed, a powerful reminder that prejudice would not be tolerated. Darren knew that despite Tony's departure, his actions would have a lasting impact. Darren reflected on his journey, grateful for his humble beginnings, which had taught him the importance of respect for everyone. Darren and his team met regularly to ensure the store's culture aligned with his values. He knew a store was only as strong as the people behind it. Some employees resisted the changes, but Darren stood firm, committed to creating a welcoming environment for all. The store's reputation grew as customers learned of Darren's dedication to inclusivity. More people came, eager to support the brand. Tony, unemployed, reflected on his actions, eventually sending Darren a letter of apology, acknowledging his wrongs. Darren watched his store flourish, proud that Boutique Avenue had become a place of respect and warmth. His journey from a struggling young man to a respected businessman was complete, a testament to resilience and compassion.